Hello, Chill Computer Guy. Today we're in Bitwig Studio 2.0. We are going to talk about the top 6 things that I like, and then we're also going to talk about the 6 things that I dislike, which are actually the same things. It's just parts of the good things that I don't like. In other words, good and bad, Bitwig 2.0. We're actually in 2.1 beta. That's kind of irrelevant to this particular video. What we have here is a template that I set up with all default Bitwig devices, basically 8 channels. We start out with a tool, a dynamics, an EQ, a peak limiter, oscilloscope there at the end. Again, this is just a basic template. We're going to start off with number 6. Number 6 is the new remote control buttons here. You'll see that we have this remote control page with each device here. If you go up here, you go add new page. It gives you these 8 icons here. You'll click this and then click on just a single click, whatever parameter you want. And then you can pretty much, get your stuff all dialed in there. And so now you can see I can assign, if I want a high pass, low pass, bell, whatever I want to do there. And then let's say a low cut, and then I can quickly do that. And then what I can do is I can close the device down and just have the remote controls. And that's real great because not only that, but you can actually flip through, do multiple pages here. So let's say I just go crazy with this and I just want, I got every possible parameter imaginable here, just going crazy there. Click this wrench here. You can see I can add more pages, so I can just kind of go nuts with this thing. I can have every single aspect mapped out, and then you can actually assign these to the device or the preset. And if you assign them to the device, then every time you load that device, those macros will be available. I keep calling them macros. They're remote controls, but super handy, super cool, and I like this. Again, you can flip through these pages, and so you can put a VST in here and control every aspect of it through these remote pages. And I don't know if there's a limit on how many you can have, but you don't even have to open up your device. You can actually fold it down and just have your controls there and control everything from these remote controls. And so that's really cool. I mean, it's handy, it's convenient, but on the flip side of that, the thing I don't like about is you can rename these. You could double click and rename them, and that's cool. I mean, that's cool as heck, but you can't assign like a different color. These are all automatically assigned these arbitrary colors that I would like to, maybe make these 2 red and those 2 yellow, and kind of like you can in Ableton, you can assign your macros and you can give them their individual colors. I'm super neurotic and super organized, and to just have these random colors on here just kind of annoys me. So I wish you could right click and assign a color to your remotes. That to me would be a big plus. But again, that's number 6 that I like, the remote controls, but then on the flip side, I dislike the fact that you can't assign your own color to the remote controls for organization purposes. All right, we're moving on to number 5. Number 5 is actually going to be the pop-up browser. Now, this has been an issue for me with Bitwig for a while. The fact that this pop-up browser is just too much information. It's really a chaotic browser. I mean, it's very powerful in the way that you can find your stuff real quick, but there has been some improvements. If you right click, you can actually hide some of the columns, and that's a huge plus. And so that comes in at number 5, is the fact that you can hide columns. Okay, you can also click on this. I'm not going to click on it now, but so if you have an empty instrument track and you hit the plus, and then let's say you want it to go right to your samples, you hit remember selected filters when adding, hit OK. Now every time you hit the first plus on an instrument track, it'll go right to samples. Say you want to go right to presets, you can right click, remember selected filters, Now if you hit OK, now if you hit the plus, you're right to presets. And so there has been some organization that has taken place, and the fact is you can remove some of these columns, and so you can clean it up in that way. So that's my number 5 of the top 6. Now on the flip side of that, the negative part is I wish you could just completely hide some of these folders. Just right click and go hide from browser or something along that line. Just would be really great. It's just the idea of when you hit the plus and you're overloaded with all this information, it's still a little kind of throws me off my game a little bit. But there has been some improvements made as far as being able to hide the columns and also being able to remember where you're coming in, on the browser. What's great about this, let's say we add a washi piano, and now after the instrument, go to just audio effects, and then right click and go remember selected filters. Now every time we click the plus after an instrument, it's going to go right to audio effects. So this is similar to how it was in Bitwig 1, but you didn't have a choice in Bitwig 1. In Bitwig 2, you do have a choice. All right, so that's number 5. So number 4 is the fact that you can actually drag these channels out now. So you can drag these channels out and be able to see your MIDI information or your waveform. You can actually drag them out now. The problem that I don't like with that is I like my stuff folded down. I really, really like this view. I don't like the thick view. I just don't. Even on a high-res monitor, it just bugs me. I really, really like this narrow view. But the problem is you can't drag out your track. So if you go to the narrow view, it folds everything. What I wish you could do is have your narrow view, but be able to just drag out just individual tracks. Like I wish I could drag at this point, and just be able to see like my vocal track, for example, super wide, but have everything else folded up to minimal, to the minimum amount. Again, with Ableton, you can have all these little tiny tracks, everything really, minimized down, and then you can just have what you're working on be very wide and accessible. And so being able to do that would be super handy. All right, so let's move on to number 3 is going to be the dashboard. Now the dashboard is this little icon here. And the dashboard, it's cool, it's great because you can see, you don't have to open up any folders on your computer. You can just go here and click on whatever. The negative part I don't like is there's no way, there's no way to organize this. There's no way to, I have recent projects, which I guess are just recent projects. I have my projects, and then I have templates. That's cool. I love the fact that I can load up my templates, but I wish there was a way to maybe right click and remove these from the menu, or maybe have different folders or something down here. I would just love to be able to organize the dashboard. I love the fact that there is a dashboard, but I would love to be able to organize it, because it's lovely to have, but then when you get on a bunch of, half these projects I'm not even working on anymore. Look at that, there's 2 of the same ones, and I love a dashboard, but when it gets cluttered, then it just gets annoying. And so there's a fine line between something that's useful and something that's just annoying because it's so cluttered with bullshit that I don't want to work on. And so the ability to just, right click and delete these from the list, or even the ability to have different, like maybe my projects, and then maybe you could have your folders for different genres. The ability to organize your projects within the dashboard would be amazing, would be super huge. So number 3 is the dashboard's a plus, but the bad part is I can't organize it in any way. Number 2 is default presets. Now, on any Bitwig device, you can right click now and you can go load default preset, and it will load up your default preset. Now, you can also save a default preset. Now, this is super great. I love this. I love this because with Bitwig 1, you loaded up a Bitwig device and you were just stuck with whatever default they assigned to it. Now on all Bitwig devices, if you double click any parameter, like for example the gain here, if I double click that, it's going to go to the default. So if you double click any parameter in Bitwig, it'll go to the default. Any knob you can actually double click. Or you can actually right click. On most of these you should be able to right click and hit set to default value, And what I've actually done is all the Bitwig devices, I've loaded them up, I've reset all the controls to the default value, and then I have saved that as a default preset. And then that way, when I do load up a Bitwig device, I get the fully default preset. And that, to me, again, with me needing to be organized and needing stuff super organized and like needing to really know where I'm at all the time, it's super handy to be able to save and load a default preset, and a default preset which you can design yourself. That is super handy. I wish there was a way, maybe in the main menu, be able to just do kind of a check a box where everything will be loaded up with every single parameter on every single device being right clicked and set to default, basically. So kind of a default all, if you will, kind of a default all checkbox or a default all setting. That way, when you open up a brand new instance of Bitwig, maybe you just installed it, you don't have to put every single device in and do what I've done and right click and set every single parameter to the default. It's really important for me, just because of my organization, because of my workflow, to have everything set at the default. And so I wish there was some way to like kind of default all devices, and then that way when you load the device you're at a default. But I'm a huge fan of default presets. I love to have that device exactly where I want it when I start working with it. That's super handy. So that's number 2, is the default presets. Now number 1 is you're looking at it. This is actually 1440. I'm on a 1440 resolution monitor, but you wouldn't know it. You wouldn't know it because up here you can actually increase and decrease the GUI. This, at first I was like, okay, I guess that's cool, but this to me is just super cool, super handy. And you could always do this in Bitwig 1 from the menu. You could go into the menu and do this, I believe. But the fact that you can just do it right here, just right click right here, and do it from right up here, that's really just cool to me. That's really neat. I really enjoy that, And this is maxed out right here. This is 1440. The thing I like about this is, depending on where you're at with your track, if I'm doing my final mix, this is the resolution I want. I want to see everything. But if I'm working on maybe working on devices, I like this. It's a little bit easier to see everything. And then also, if you're doing screencasts, I do a screencast, it's really handy to be able to, if we're talking about, the compressor here. Let's say we're doing something, we're talking about the side chain compression. Let's say we have a little tutorial on side chain compression. Well, it's really nice to be able to see that all big. I know in post you can zoom in on the device and do it that way, but it's just, it's super handy in my opinion. Now, I only float between the 1440 and the 1080, or whatever it comes out to. So I float between the 100% and the 125%. So on the flip side, the negative part of that, this Bitwig icon right here. As far as screen real estate, you have this entire strip up here which is not being used effectively in my opinion. If you have a bunch of projects open, you're going to have tabs up here, and that's great. And I guess if you have a bunch of projects open, then it's being populated. But this area, now you could maybe have some icons up there, or maybe bring your transport up to there, and then you could have more icons along the top here. It just seems like the space above the transport it's not utilized as efficiently as it could be. Not a huge thing, that's something I noticed right away when I installed Bitwig 2, is maybe some more material up here and use the screen real estate a little bit more efficiently, because there's a lot of room up here. You can put a lot of stuff up there. That's number one, is the GUI scaling. And then the flip side of that, of course, is this screen real estate above the transport I don't think is being utilized in the best way possible. Now, we also have a bonus. This is a bonus of the top 6. We have honorable mention, which is the DSP meter. You can just double click on it and instantly get your DSP. So that's kind of an honorable mention, is the fact that you can just click that twice and see your DSP graph right there. So if you're having any kind of issues with load, plugins are not running, or maybe your audio interface isn't configured properly, you can tell kind of what's going on. It tells you everything you need to know: your buffer rate, your sample rate, and your average load, peak load, period, jitter, all that stuff. And before, like I say, this was in Bitwig 1, but you had to go into the menu. But here you just give it a single click and you're right there. So that's another kind of an honorable mention. So you could say the top 7. So that pretty much concludes. That's the top 6 and the bottom 6 things about Bitwig 2.0. Like I say, all 6 things are wonderful. And but yeah, if you have any things, any parts of Bitwig that you like or dislike, please comment. Leave a comment below. Let me know, let everybody know things you like, things you dislike about Bitwig 2.0. I'm excited. It's a beautiful, brilliant piece of software. There's certain things that bug me, but there's certain things that I really, really like. And this is just a quick list of my top 6. Every plus has kind of a negative. There's no perfect piece of software. There's no perfect DAW. But I think Bitwig is really getting closer and closer with every release, and so I'm excited about that. All right, if you haven't already, please subscribe. Chill Computer Guy. We will see you guys next week. Thank you.